we create
I think we lost Anne.
I think we lost Anne. I'll take over for her for a moment. Anne was just explaining that because our partners, the North Dakota Regional Education Associations, provide professional development for the state. We joined together with them and have been working collaboratively on a weekly basis on this project for a long time now. That it is under that collaborative group that we determined that we would use the term science of reading. And we also are working with them through ESSER funding to support the legislation, the professional development law by offering trainings. And so we've been working together with them, partnering for quite some time now. So DPI is not essentially providing those trainings on our own. Welcome back, Anne.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. Either I pressed the wrong button or got disconnected. So thank you, Brenda, for stepping in. Yeah, REAs are a true partner in this work, in thought partnering and what the legislation looks like, what technical assistance looks like, as well as implementation of some of the professional development that we've secured. So the department needed to wait until April 1st when the administrative rules were finalized before we could really start publicizing and talking about this legislation as it is rolling forward. So April 1st, shortly thereafter, all districts received notification, and we also provided a webinar series. So the webinar series, it's a 3-part series available on our DPI website. Highly encourage you to check them out if you haven't done so already. Brenda, if you could throw that in the chat, that would be awesome. The first webinar really focuses on the professional development requirements as well as the options that are available for schools and districts. The second webinar talks about the reporting process, and I think that's something that does provoke quite a bit of anxiety. What does this report look like? What do we need to have ready on October 1st? And then lastly, the third webinar was for reading curriculum and assessment. And so focusing on those things, those webinars are available. So hopefully you have seen those, you've heard about those, and we do not have a structured presentation today. We are simply here to listen to your questions, provide answers and direction where it's fitting. So with that, I'll open up the floor. Use the chat, please, to ask a question, or unmute your microphone, please.
Hi, this is Heidi Bedell. Have we got any insight whether special education directors, school psychologists, program coordinators, OTs, PTs, are they going to require the training?
Okay, so I think that is a great question. The legislation says that all K-3 teachers and principals, so those people teaching K-3 or principals in a K-3 elementary building. So the questions to ask yourself are, number one, like a special ed director. Are they a K-3 teacher working with kids K-3 or a K-3 principal? So typically, in my understanding of a special ed director, the answer would be no. So therefore, no, they would not be required by law to have training or be reported for the training. Now let's take somebody like a speech pathologist. Okay, a speech pathologist might be working in a K-3 or with K-3 learners. So the answer to that would be yes, they are K-3. And we have resources on our website as well that are kind of a little bit of a flow chart for training. Brenda, if you could put that flow chart, a decision tree for some training opportunities, that would be helpful. So speech path, yes, they are working K-3, but are they the primary literacy teacher for K-3? The answer to that is no. That's the 3rd grade teacher. That's the 1st grade teacher. However, do they have a teaching license? Some speech path, yes. Some speech path, potentially no. If they have a teaching license, if they work with grade 3, we are saying that yes, they would fall under that category as a teacher, but then we have various trainings available. Some districts are aware of the letters training. The letters training is fantastic, but it is extremely time intensive and probably not in that best interest of that speech pathologist and their time. So in that case, there are other trainings available. Starting on August 1st, we'll have an asynchronous shorter training available that person might be interested in. We also have a summer conference that's happening here in Bismarck at the Event Center, July 11th through the 13th. They could participate as a teacher of other subject areas in K3 and receive training at that event. So it's not an easy black, white, yes, no, but I think those are those core questions. So are they directly working with kids K3? Is it their primary responsibility to be a reading teacher and then modify the training, modify the professional development accordingly? Does that help?
Yeah, I believe so.
All right, guys, who else has a question? Go ahead and take yourself off mute or put it in the chat.
I see a question in the chat right now asking if there are start dates for the Science of Reading course called A Shared Responsibility and Science of Reading Reaching All Learners. I'm going to bring in, I saw some of our REA partners are online. Is there anyone who could answer that question right now? I know we're on the cusp of releasing that, but I don't have the date myself.
So Brenda, I'm going to address something while an REA partner gets ready. So just like a school or a district often purchases a curriculum or professional development, you don't really create it from scratch. So when this legislation came into place, there was some stuff that was ready to go. The most ready to go thing was letters training. Now, as I said, that's super robust and it's really good, but it's probably not the best answer for everybody. So letters is offered and was offered because that was ready to go out of the box. And it was actually something that was already moving forward. So that is one of the options. There are several options like the two that are mentioned in the chat that we are North Dakota-izing to meet the letter of the law. So this law requires the 5 elements of literacy, which if you've been in education since Reading First or early Reading First, like those things are still the same. There's 2 additional requirements in our state statute. One is the science behind how we learn to read and how students learn to read, including evidence-based practices. And the second element is what does direct, explicit, well, that's a different word. I'm using the wrong word, Brenda, but what does that direct, explicit instruction look like? So we have to North Dakotaize any training that comes in, and that's what we're working on and waiting for getting those ready. One is soon to be released, one will be released by the start of the school year. Brenda, do we have an REA partner who's ready to speak on that?
I don't know that anyone's stepping forward. I know the chart says that the shared responsibility would be available in April. I know there were some filming took about twice as long as they thought, but they are hoping to release that soon, and we'll try to publish that on our upcoming events if we can find out the date on that. For the Reaching All Learners, that is the more in detail course that will go through the modules for teachers who would be teaching reading that would have more detail. We want that to come out by August is what we're looking for, and it should be aligned with the training that we're offering at the North Dakota Literacy Conference this summer. The same professional development providers are providing the summer information as where we're getting the PD shared learning course information. So those should play together. It's just which format do you like? Do you like to come and learn in person, or do you like to engage in online asynchronous learning with some supports? So hopefully later in the summer, but before the start of the school year, that one will be available.
And Janet mentioned in the chat that she'll receive those dates and put them out over the CEL chat. So I think, or the email listserv. So I think that's great.
Thanks.
Brenda, I think the question brings up a really good thing that point that we've been fielding. The legislation requires that everybody receive training by the start of the school year. Okay. We also know that there's real life that happens. And in real life, to train every educator in North Dakota, K-3 and principals by the start of the school year, we recognize that that's extremely burdensome and not necessarily leading to high quality professional development. So with that said, we have composed the administrative rules in a way that still has a sense of urgency that yes, we want to move the ball forward. We recognize that having some people trained by the start of the school year might be feasible. And so a district could report on the report and defend what they have done. And here are my staff that are fully trained, because we went back to 2019 when we had particular trainings. You can bring in some of that old information. And you might have new staff on board that, no, we aren't trained yet. Or maybe the district is taking a more thorough strategy and we're going to have training starting this August over the next 2 years to focus on this. This report is not a one checkbox, yes, everybody's met it and we're done. Rather, it provides you the flexibility to say, okay, everybody's done, or we're partway there, or you know what? In all honesty, we just learned about this legislation this summer because I'm a new principal, new superintendent, and we're getting the ball rolling. So the report is allows much flexibility for a principal to defend where they're at and how they're going to move forward from where they're at. Brenda, someone asked a question about the literacy, or actually you mentioned the literacy conference. Could you speak a little bit about the literacy conference that is happening in July here in Bismarck?
Yes, could unmute there. Yes, so in July, we have the literacy conference. It's a combined event with the first day of that conference is offering more of a pre-conference opportunity with breakout sessions, which would include early learning. Those are more opt-in days. Day 2 and 3 are trainings that are designed specifically to help you align with the requirements of the legislation. As we've mentioned, different educators hold different roles regarding reading instruction or reading support within the building, or a shared responsibility among the whole building. So we have a one-day opportunity for teachers of other content. So that would be people not primarily delivering reading content, or not primarily they're not the principal leading that reading initiatives in the building. That day is being provided to offer that background that's required of all the areas and evidence-based research. And then the second portion of that day will be geared toward explicit examples of how educators who do not primarily teach reading can apply it within their class. So if you're a PE teacher, a music teacher, a fine arts teacher, you could expect to receive specific examples and support and collaboration with other people in the room on what is it that we're supposed to do with reading within our assignment. So I think that's going to be a great day. That's a one-day opportunity. It's $30 a day to go to the training. So it's fairly low cost, supported through other funds. And then there's a 2-day training opportunity for principals of K-3 buildings. Their session is specific to if you're a principal, not a reading teacher. What are your roles in supporting reading initiatives and within your building, and understanding what to look for in your staff and what to support them with. So it's for you. It's not, our goal is really to meet who you are and what your role is, and not to have you take a training that doesn't apply to you. And then there's also a 2-day training available for teachers who primarily teach reading. That could be either you're a classroom teacher, so you have that reading piece in your day and throughout your whole day. If you're a specialist, but you're working on reading instruction with those students, if you're a special educator who has, primary reading instruction, then that two-day opportunity would be available. So the conference is $30 per day. So if you're taking the 2-day, it would be $60. We are offering, for those people who would like, we will give you a certificate of completion that says you met it. And we've ensured that all the areas in the law are incorporated in what we're offering during the conference this summer.
Thanks, Brenda.
I
So
do want
Brenda-
to say, can
Yep, go
I
ahead.
just go on a little bit? As Anne mentioned before, we know that deadline is looming and it's hard. So we do support ongoing implementation of your training within your building. So you'll see on our guidance that we have information that talks about one and done trainings not being best practice, and you could consider this summer training a one and done, but we really believe that it's going to give a really good overview of what's the reason behind this law, and what is it that they want us to kind of wrap our minds around that maybe we weren't doing before. I think it would be a great introduction, and then each staff could continue to discuss how they're implementing these ideas, because when you receive that much information at once, then continuing to use it becomes the struggle and the challenge. And that's what we're really encouraging, is that long-term collaborative embedding of this information. So yes, the summer conference will meet your needs, and it would be great if your staff would, learn enough from that beginning that you could continue to work in this area. So you'll hear us. I don't want you to think we're talking out of both sides of our mouth. We're trying to offer opportunities for different people to engage in different ways. Some people want to see the whole pie. Some people want to take it bit by bit. So I think you could even combine the summer opportunity with the online asynchronous platform and the supported collaborative work that the REAs are offering. There are just a lot of ways to put this together to meet individual needs and individual learning styles. Every person on your staff does not need to take the exact same training, and bringing together their different experiences would be great in rolling it out.
Thanks, Brenda. Other questions?
Amy, this is John at Powers Lake. I do have one. Maybe this is for Anne, if anything. When our teachers and we looked at the webinar series and the slideshows,
Yes.
was there ever a requirement, Anne, about 30 hours of a minimum time for that PD? Because I didn't think so. But one of our teachers brought that up, and I thought, I haven't seen that in anything that's been put out, but I thought I will ask the question today. So.
Great. I appreciate that question. And the
Yeah.
answer to that is no. There is no requirement that every teacher has to have 30 hours of professional development. Nothing like that. What we can say, what we know from research, is that a one-shot, one-day event is probably not going to change instruction in the classroom. So does a teacher need more support than a 4-hour, 8-hour, or 15-minute training? Yes. But is that a requirement of the law? No. Where I think that question might be coming up, and I'm going to share this decision-making chart. If I can, there we go, share my screen, choose the right thing. Okay, do you see my screen? Okay, I'm seeing some head nods. So this is a chart that the REA partners have helped to create that helps us make the decision on, okay, what type of professional development does somebody need? What options might be available? Knowing that this is not the list, this is a list. A district could do its own thing. It does not have to even participate in these options of professional development. But as I mentioned before, do you teach reading directly? If we go to that special ed question, you know that if that answer is yes or no, this could help provide you some information on some of the trainings that are available. When I scroll to the next pages, here you're going to see, okay, what type of commitment is this? So that SOR is shared responsibility, that is going to be an online course for 2 hours. and it's asynchronous. You do it at your own pace and space. If you look at letters for admin, that's where you're going to start to see, okay, this is a 30-hour commitment. So is it quality? Absolutely. But is it for every single principal required? Absolutely not. It's for those principals that feel that this is the type of training they would like and the support that they need. Scrolling to the next page as well, if you look at foundations of reading, the science of reading for all learners, and letters is at 160 hours. The others are at 30 hours. Now, know that this is not required that they take this one. This is a model of the professional development, an option of that professional development. So John, does that help answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely, Ann. Thank you.
And I believe someone shared that decision tree in the chat earlier. So other questions?
And I've gotten this question a lot, and I don't have an answer to it. But as this legislation passed this last session, there was no appropriation to the districts to help cover the cost of the professional development, or perhaps even the additional contracted time it would take for a professional to complete this activity. So I've been getting a lot of questions about what is, in addition to having to make sure people are compensated, what's the additional cost of registration or to obtain the development offered either by the summer conference or by the REAs?
Okay, great question.
Like
Amy.
you saying it was an unfunded mandate, so we're trying to figure out what's our investment really looked like.
Right. And we too can recognize that, yes, this was an unfunded mandate. This is Ann Ellefson's opinion, not the opinion of the Department of Public Instruction. But if I go back to legislation that was occurring around this time, I recall our legislators trying to figure out how to tell districts how to spend their ESSER funds. They wanted to mandate how districts would spend their ESSER funds. And DPI had to clarify many times that we couldn't say ESSER funds must be spent on XYZ. So I do think that this was probably a strategic way for a requirement to be put in place for districts to be driven to spend ESSER funds a certain way. Now, you might not have ESSER funds anymore because you may have used them. This is, as I said, Ann Ellefson's opinion, not the opinion of the department. But if I put all those pieces of conversation together, this piece of legislation, I would say, was to help drive reading instruction is critical for grades K-3. We had data that shows that we're, as a state, not stellar, and districts not stellar, and we need some more attention. So with that said, as I said, academic support was gifted this legislation. DPI also did not receive a pot of funds for this. What we have done is we have earmarked our state level ESSER funds for some of this professional development. So the work of the REAs that to purchase the shared responsibility course, to North Dakotaize it, to stand it up on a platform, those are all things that have been purchased with a contract between DPI and the NDREAs as a collective. There are also some opportunities where maybe letters cost was bought down for some educators, because that was the first thing that was available and what we could get the ball moving towards. Regarding how districts might want to spend or how they're expected to fund this, I think that varies district by district. Questions that I receive is this allowable under ESSER? Yes, yes, yes. Is this allowable as a part of the 20% requirement for learning loss under ESSER? Yes. This professional development, any curriculum, any assessment purchases, that all would be allowable as ESSER. Now, let's say that you're a district that has exhausted all of its ESSER funds. I will say that the other programs I know are title funds. Every district in North Dakota receives title funds, in Title II in particular, of some sort. So this is an allowable use of Title II funds as well. Now, we recognize that for some individuals and some districts, those funds also might be exhausted. And that's why on that menu with the REAs, there's a variety of trainings available. The shared responsibility, the asynchronous, that is free. Let me clarify. That is at no cost to the districts. It is not free. Our tax dollars are paying for it through ESSER funds and through state obligations, right? But it is at no cost to any district or any educator in North Dakota. So there is a no cost option for this to be done. Districts are already have in place professional learning days. They could easily bring that into professional learning days, spread that out over the course of their year. Now, recognizing that might not fit for everybody, but it is an option to help you meet that requirement. Now, Brenda talked about the summer conference, and yes, the registration is $30. That's only because we can't pay for food with federal funds. So we charge a registration fee that covers our food. The rest of it is being provided on behalf of our state ESSER dollars as a low cost mechanism for schools and districts. Again, you need to bring your people here to Bismarck, which is a cost, and maybe a summer stipend, which is a cost. Those again would be allowable under Title II, if you're school-wide Title I. Hey, if you transfer Title V, that's a different webinar, but you could use your transfer Title V funds. There you go, John. Yep, transfer 5. And then don't forget, if you have those ESSER funds, ESSER 2, ESSER 3, that 20% set aside for learning loss, all of those are options. And that doesn't even go into what districts have for professional learning opportunities. So Amy, that's what I can provide. And keep in mind, some of that was my own opinion, not the opinion of DPI.
No, that was an awesome response, Anne. Thank you very much.
No, and that's what I was just going to suggest too, is put the money in Title V. Put it in Title V, and it gives you the most broad range of possibilities for you.
Yes, John, and you were invited to my next ConApp webinar training to be my spokesperson.
Yep, absolutely.
All right, guys, we're at the 9 o'clock hour, but we'll happily take a few more questions if there's any that are out there. Or if there's any in the chat, which I can't see while I'm driving, because that wouldn't be safe.
We're not seeing any in the chat. I did see Jolene from Seek post that a shared responsibilities in the final stages, hoping to have it up in the next week. So when that is available, we will be sending that out to all elementary principals, superintendents, as they're the primary contacts on this legislation.
And
Again, that's an option, not a requirement. Yes, Leslie.
I know that some document was shared in the chat. Unfortunately, I had to switch from my computer to my phone, so I lost it. Could you just send that out?
The guidance doc?
The guidance doc, yes.
Yes. Would you prefer to have it in email?
Yes, please.
Okay, so
Thank
what
you.
we can do is after this email,
Mhm.
I don't know if I can send on the NDCEL chat, but we'll figure out a way
Hey,
that,
Anne, if you want to just send it, if you want, yeah, just hit it to me and I'll send it out on the list for
Okay.
everybody.
so we can provide a link to the webinar series, a link to the PDF, which is the FA PDF. It's a frequently asked questions regarding this. We can also provide that decision tree tool and then the list of events. The other thing I really want to highlight is the report. So yes, this legislation requires a report due October 1st. We are in the final stages of development. It's going to be in STARS. And for anybody who is their background or their passions in life or data collection, know that this is not a tool that is going to be like awesome for, I would say, having a standard of collecting data. It's really like free choice, free response in a lot of areas. There are 3 core areas you'll report on. Number 1 is professional development. Number 2 is curriculum. And number 3 is assessment. So what's going on and all those. Now it's going to be DPI's challenge, and how do we pull that information together to provide a report to the legislature. But this first time around, we wanted to offer enough options, flexibility, and space for a district to represent like what's going on in their district and in their elementary school. So A data person is going to want you to have a Likert scale of 1 to 5 and only so many options. And unfortunately, with 170 some districts and even more elementary schools, we felt we needed more of a variety and options for you to represent what's happening, maybe not necessarily Likert scales with options. So you'll be able to key information in that best describes your environment.
Hey, Ann, this is kind of a crazy question, but if a superintendent wanted to take the training, would we be allowed to do so?
Great question, Mr. Williams. Yes, so the legislation is geared for grades K-3. However, what we're finding is many elementary schools are saying, well, this makes sense. I'm going to have all my educators participate in K-5. Or even a superintendent might say, I really need to learn more about this so I can better support my schools, my districts, or my own child at home that is learning how to read. We're finding others that have participated in the training finding great benefit. On a side note, not on our documents, but something that exists in the state is literacy training for adolescents. So for that upper elementary, middle, and high school, there's training available on struggling. How do we help address literacy for struggling adolescents? Again, not part of this legislation. It's something that's been around for a while, but it is fantastic training to support literacy for all of our North Dakota K-12 students. And Vince, the other thing is, if it's free, no cost, it's no cost to any North Dakota educator. If you came to the summer conference and you're not a K-3 principal or teacher, you get the same price point. So we're not differentiating price or access because we feel it's high quality and really valuable for all educators. John Pretzer, where did the data come from about North Dakota readers? Are you saying that our reading achievement scores, Mr. Pretzer, is that what you're referring to? What the data that I can tell you that we have access to, and it's on ND Insights as a state, our reading achievement, and this is all districts in North Dakota, our reading achievement is right around 40%. And many districts hover around that. Additionally, we pulled data and information from those districts that utilized NWEA and did studies on that during the pandemic, and that was not very promising. So that is where the legislature was making its decisions from. And Sunsby, the link for the training, and I'm sorry, I don't know your first name. Can you clarify what training you would like? Oh, the upper elementary, that adolescent training, is that, we can put a link, okay, we can put a link to that in the correspondence that we send to Amy. Just know that DPI isn't buying, or the state ESSER funds aren't necessarily buying that cost down, that price down. That's a separate training series, not a part of this state investment, just a separate highlight. So yes, we will include the information for adolescent learners. We've also had educators participate in the letters training. And as I said, that's the one that's 160 hours. And there have been secondary people with degrees in English and reading and masters that are saying, wow, I didn't necessarily understand this the way that it's being taught. And so we feel that it has resonated with people even outside of their typical K-3 focus area. Other questions?
Good job, Anna. Are you like counting in your head, trying to do the teacher thing when you ask the question, like any more questions and waiting?
Yeah, I have really bad wait time. So yes, I have to count. I have to do something. Otherwise I would be like, boom, done, and we're on to something else.
Yeah, you would be both. Last call on questions for Ann or for Brenda.
And know that you can also email us. Myself, Ann Ellefson, Brenda Ermintrout, we have a literacy email address as well. Feel free to send it to that, but we'll pull information together today and get it to Amy, and then Amy can share it across the listserv for anyone that would like to access these resources. We appreciate you taking the time to be here today. And if you do have questions, feel free to reach out. We will do our best to respond, and know that we also are including our REAs. DPI, yes, is charged with implementation of this law, but our REAs are a huge partner in the solutions for this. And we're really trying to find statewide solutions, not necessarily just solutions that only fit a district with 10,000 students. So we're trying to find statewide solutions and then differentiated, right? Not everybody wants to come to Bismarck for a training. So what does that look like?
All righty. Well,
All right,
hey,
thanks,
and
everyone.
we really appreciate you guys joining us today.
Absolutely.
Thank you to everybody that's been on the call. Just a final reminder on getting registered for summer conference, June 21st through the 23rd here in Bismarck. That is right on our website, nucel.us. And aside from that, hey guys, we're only like a week or two away from being at the end. You've made it. And I'm so proud of all of you. You guys are just awesome. And you continue to lead and care about kids more than anything else that any people that I've seen in any part of my career. So I appreciate you all very much. Be safe, and we'll talk to you all next week.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.